Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Your Financial Compass, the show dedicated to helping you successfully navigate to and through your retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio today are two financial advisors from Bulman Wealth Group. We have Scott and Shawn. We've got a great show for you today. The title of today's show is To Roth or Not to Roth? That is the question. It's rare that you get to combine a Shakespearean quote with retirement planning, but that's the question we're going to be addressing today. Should you convert possibly all or at least some of your your qualified money, I should say, your tax-deferred accounts into Roth accounts? That's what we're going to be discussing. So, Scott, Shawn, that's a little bit of a tongue twister to get out today, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's to Roth or not to Roth. It's Shawn's episode. It was going to be called To Sweet or Not to Sweet, because he's sworn off sweets. I don't know for how long. Yeah. And I did check under the
he's not
desk.
hiding
He's not
his
hiding
cash there.
It's about 2 weeks straight on a roll. It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Walking by the donuts in the studio.
Right.
There were some, and he got angry. He was like yelling at people because he couldn't have the sweets.
Yeah.
So hopefully today we don't see that.
I have a big sweet tooth too.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, I love this concept that you guys came up with for today, to Roth or not to Roth, because, you know, I think most people are familiar with the fact that the majority of Americans have the bulk of their wealth saved up in these tax-deferred accounts. Maybe for you it's a 401k, a 403b, whatever type of workplace retirement plan that you have. And then you might also have traditional IRAs. And this is presenting a huge problem for folks because they are building this ticking tax time bomb, which I know we've talked about on the show before. The tax is going to be owed on that money, and when you hit age currently 73, in the future it will be age 75, those required minimum distributions hit. This is not optional. This is when the government says it's time for you to start paying the tax on that money. But we've been trained and conditioned for so long to put our retirement savings in these tax-deferred accounts. So this is becoming a huge problem for a lot of people.
Well, yes, and you mentioned being conditioned. It was all that was available for the longest time, meaning a 401k or a traditional IRA. They came out in the late 70s, so everyone just got used to putting money into that. And Roth IRAs didn't even come out until the late 90s, and I think in 1998, I think at the time people were still kind of hesitant, not understanding the rules. Correct.
Right.
And at the time as well, if you made over $100,000 a year, say you had money in one of these, you know, the 401k or a traditional IRA, you couldn't convert it into a Roth. So it wasn't even an option. Fast forward to 2010, that's when Congress allowed anyone, any income level, to be able to convert from a traditional 401k into a Roth. But as you said, people just got so used to it for so long. The current stats are of retirement money that exists, between 85 and 90% of it is in these tax-deferred accounts. As you said, they've never been taxed. So there's a huge bundle of money there. So if this is you, you're not alone. It's you and 9 of your other friends.
Well, and when these accounts were created, everyone was told that this was a really good thing for them because you put the money in today, let's say you make a contribution, you get a tax break for doing so, and then the money grows tax-deferred, and when you go to pull it out, supposedly in retirement, you should be in a lower tax bracket. But why is that actually a misconception?
Well, I think most people are surprised when they retire and they add up their Social Security, pension, perhaps some real estate income, other sources of income on top of their investment income, and they find that they're actually making more money in retirement than they thought. And the other reason is you add RMDs, required minimum distributions, on top of that when you turn either 73 or eventually 75. And that's when the government, as you mentioned, Kristen, forces you to take that money out. And what we've seen from clients, it can be close to $100,000 a year sometimes people have to take out.
Right, whether you need the money or not,
Whether you need it or not.
Yep.
It's added to their ordinary income. They pay ordinary income taxes on that. That can significantly push them into a higher tax bracket. And then finally, we have no idea what tax rates are going to be in the future.
Correct. Yeah.
And right now, the tax rates are at the third lowest they've ever been in history. I don't think there's a client that Scott or any of our advisors meet with that think tax rates are going to go down in the future. We think there's a pause and there's really a window of opportunity, and I think creates some urgency for people to take a look at this.
Right.
But that is an unknown that could certainly increase people's tax bill in the future.
I think also the best way to illustrate this, and you guys are always so good at this, is sharing real life examples of why it's so critical to pay attention to these RMDs, how they can negatively impact your tax bill down the road in retirement. So any examples come to mind that you want to illustrate for our viewers?
Yeah, well, Shawn had mentioned and you mentioned this as well, many of our clients get to that point of having to take their required minimum distribution and they don't need the money. As Shawn was detailing, you might have other sources of income. And an example, there was a 75-year-old that was taking their RMDs. They had a $1.5 million in an old IRA. And his RMD that year was over $60,000, $61,000. Money that he didn't need, added on top of his pension. He had some Social Security, he had a little bit of a rental income, so it actually bumped him, it snowballed, put him in a new tax bracket, and it's just one of those things where you start to open the conversation to a Roth conversion, because whereas traditional IRA, traditional 401k has an RMD mandate, like you said, hence the acronym. Once money's into a Roth money does not have that same RMD mandate, because Uncle Sam already got their cut of it. You know, we always joke, we don't need the money. Well, someone does. That someone is Uncle Sam and his buddies.
Yes. All right, so this whole concept of Roth conversion, though, for folks who aren't maybe familiar, as we wrap up this segment, I would love for you to just explain what that process actually looks like for people.
Well, we've created a tool for that, and I know we're going to talk about that in the next segment. But what it essentially means is they can take a portion of their traditional IRA or even their 401k when it's time to retire, pay the taxes now, but conceivably a lower tax rate, move that money into a Roth IRA. From that point on, for the rest of their life, they get tax-free growth, tax-free withdrawals, and which we may touch on in later in another segment, is that when they pass that money on to their heirs, those heirs benefit from 10 years of tax-free growth.
Yes, because those RMDs don't apply to the Roth account, and that's a huge benefit to them. Well, again, we have a lot more to cover on today's show regarding this concept of to Roth or not to Roth, and we are going to be sharing a very special proprietary tool when we come back that was previously only available to existing clients of Bulman Wealth Group. But for anyone who's watching who's going, yeah, all my money is saved up in these tax-deferred accounts and I need to be prepared for this, and maybe you yourself are asking yourself this question of, should I do this Roth conversion or not, and if so, how much and when? What would you say to that person?
Well, I would say you're not alone, because as we mentioned earlier, 85 to 90% of money in retirement accounts is in money that hasn't been taxed yet. So if this is you, which it probably is, you're not alone. Don't despair just yet. And call the number below. You can call the number, you can scan the QR code, and we can begin having a discussion about what your situation looks like in terms of taxes. What are strategies to consider? Maybe this isn't your concern, which it should be, but you might have a concern about, am I invested properly? I'm afraid of running out of money. Anything that falls under the realm of finances can be discussed in what we call our financial compass reviews. You can call the number, scan the QR code, we can have a discussion and see what this all means for you.
Wonderful. Scott, Shawn, thank you so much. I'm excited to continue this conversation with both of you. To our viewers at home, if any of this is resonating with you, we encourage you to pick up the phone, call the number on the bottom of your screen to schedule your time to come in and receive your very own complimentary financial compass review. 888-970-4685. Or if you'd rather connect online, if you simply pull out your smartphone, you can open up that camera app. Just point, click, and scan that QR code that you see there down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from Bulman Wealth Group, will schedule the time for you to come in, meet with the team that makes up the Financial Compass TV show, and get your complimentary Financial Compass review. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to reveal this very important resource for you that can help you potentially answer the question of whether or not you should Roth or not. Stay with us to find out what it is.
The team at Bulman Wealth Group is exceptional, from our advisor team to our service team, which is, I think, second to none. But it all revolves around the idea that our clients are vitally important.
One of the ways I feel like we differentiate ourselves is we want a relationship with our clients. And I really learned that from Chris. Is there's so many dollars and cents and all this information to know, but at the end of the day, it's got to be a trust and a like, because we're partnering with somebody. So I want them to think a trip to see me is not a trip to the DMV or to the dentist, but it's just being able to share in the good times and be available to be a resource in the bad times too.
Our clients are our friends. I really view them as part of our family because we go through some pretty significant life events. So it's really being a partner with our clients through all those life events and through the life journey.
As Americans, we strive for better, from a better house to a better career to a better life for our kids. Better has become the American way. But when it comes to your retirement, what does better mean to you? More income, a flexible lifestyle, better solutions? A better retirement begins with a plan. To get your complimentary written financial plan, call the number you see here. You only retire once. This is your opportunity to plan for better.
Welcome back to Your Financial Compass. I'm Kristen Oakley here with both Scott and Shawn from Bulman Wealth Group. And today we are answering the question, to Roth or not to Roth. I should say that is the question, right? We're helping you determine whether or not you should maybe convert some or all of your tax-deferred money into a Roth account. And before the break, we let you know that we're going to be sharing a very special resource for you. We call it the Retirement Tax Bill Calculator. So we're going to go ahead and put this up on the screen for you. There is a website that you can visit. We encourage you, even now, take out your smartphone and we're going to walk through this process with you. It's completely free for you to utilize. So visit bwgtaxbill.com. You can also scan that QR code and it's going to take you to this tax bill calculator. And Shawn, why don't you walk us through this landing page that folks are going to find when they go to that site?
Yeah, I really like the team has done such a great job on this to keep it really simple.
Yes.
Certainly putting in your name, your age, your email address, just basic personal information so you can receive the report.
Right.
Then you put in your the amount that you have in the qualified accounts in those IRAs or 401ks. Now, you could pick one account just to see what it comes up to. You could combine all of your accounts. You could take your accounts and your spouse's accounts and add them all together to see what the total tax liability is going to be for your family. So you have some flexibility there.
Yes.
The other thing you want to put is your estimated tax rate. And this was where you combine your approximate effective tax rate for federal and for state. And then you want to put in a growth rate and just put an estimated growth rate that you expect your investments to grow over your lifetime. You know, I would say a 5 or 6% is a very conservative rate, but if you have felt comfortable investing more in growth-oriented type investments, you know, 6 or 7% might be a good number.
And I love that those are sliders too, so you can actually play around and change them, right, very easily.
That's right.
Yep.
Right. So it's really as simple as that.
Okay, so once you click submit, then boom. Scott, what are they going to see?
Well, then Shawn is going to mail you a bill that you're going to have to pay.
No.
All jokes aside, obviously we're not sending you a bill. So based on the information that you enter, the first screen that pops up is this one here where the first number, the much larger dramatic number, is at that setup. It's what your estimated tax bill is going to be over your lifetime on that amount of money. So before you throw your computer across the room, the good news is if you look at the number next to it, if we start looking into potential proactive plans, it shows what the potential tax burden could be going that route. Obviously, it's a very, very large disparity there. And that's kind of the tip of the iceberg. Then we will mail you a 6-page document, and this is one of the forms here that it'll
come directly to your email.
Directly to your email, where it goes a little bit more in depth and kind of shows you how the numbers were conjured up, and just showing a little bit more meat on the bone of how the one total tax bill there, almost $2 million versus the $240,000, and really it's meant as kind of A, to raise an eyebrow, B, to be like, okay, what do I do next? It's a conversation starter or a catalyst to see, okay, now that I see this, what does it mean for me? And we can set up a time to talk further about, okay, well, this is alarming, these figures.
Right.
We can talk more about how do we get that smaller number? What are the measures, the proactive measures that we can take or strategies we can use to try to create that $240,000 bill
instead of the 1.9
instead of the almost $2 million bill. So it's just it's a way to open that conversation that's also specific to you, because you're not just entering random numbers. You're putting in your figure, your age, as Shawn said, your estimated tax bill or percentage, and it's it's a good and bad thing.
Yep.
More good if it opens the conversation on the right path.
Well, it creates the awareness of the problem for your own situation. I think once you see those in real numbers and you realize, oh my gosh, I mean, if you do nothing, that number on the left-hand side is showing you what the government's tax plan is for you versus how much less you could pay in taxes if you enact some of these tax saving strategies. People are probably going to want to figure out, okay, how do I do that? Now, encouragement here, don't do it alone, because it can be very confusing. It can be very complex. There's so many ways it could go wrong. So how do you help folks navigate through this important decision for themselves of whether they should Roth or not?
Right. Well, an important consideration that you mentioned earlier, Kristen, is in that example, that was someone who had $1 million in an IRA or a traditional 401k. The tax bill now was $240,000, much lower than the $1.9 million over their lifetime. But still, $240,000
Doesn't
can
feel
be
great.
That ain't chump change either.
Yeah.
So I think the important thing to know is that you don't, and very few of our clients convert their entire $1 million IRA or 401k into a Roth.
And certainly not
And very
all at
rarely
once.
not all at
Yeah.
once.
Right.
There's a tax bill for you.
Right.
Part of the planning we do for clients is to figure out what amount do we want to do? Do we want to phase it out over a number of years?
Right.
Especially now that we expect taxes to stay relatively stable over the next few years. There's a big incentive to really phase that out, and it's all a part of a plan that we consider all the factors that are involved in a family's financial picture.
Yeah, for sure. Any other considerations that you help kind of ask and walk through with your clients to see, okay, is this in fact the right thing for you to be doing?
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance involved with it, because there's as we were saying earlier, there's all these different streams of income that someone might be receiving. So we have to be mindful of that, and also mindful where they fall in a particular tax bracket. Because it's one thing, to jump from, say, a 12 to 14% bracket, but to jump from a 12 to 22 or 22 to 32% tax bracket, we don't want to create more problems than we're solving. So we have to be very mindful about what is that threshold in terms of this year we could convert up to $35,000 and not hop a tax bracket. And then we know that's the wiggle room we have. Doesn't mean we have to convert that much, but at least we have a number to go off, and we can start to build out, okay, if we converted that, how much are we going to be on the hook for taxes? And walking through all these things and understanding that there's a systematic element. Ripping the Band-Aid off or kind of peeling it off or towing into the water instead of diving head first, is we can do it systematically.
Yes.
And I think we'll talk about this more in the next segment about the timeline of having those RMD ages start later. Or there's good and bad to that. One of the good elements is it can extend the timeline of conversion, which again, we'll explain more later. But the point is there's nuance. It doesn't work in every situation. It's worth looking into in every situation, but we have to be very careful and tread lightly with it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, guys, thank you so much for walking us through this amazing resource. Again, we invite you to visit bwgtaxbill.com. You can put in some very basic information and see what your potential tax bill in retirement might be if you do nothing versus how much less you could pay in taxes if you enact a lot of these tax saving strategies that we're talking about on today's show. You can also scan that QR code, and that will take you directly to that tax bill calculator. And we are confident that once you see those numbers side by side, we know you can't unsee them. We know it might be shocking. You're going to want to reach out to the team of Bulman Wealth Group and receive some help. So if you know that that's you, we invite you, pick up the phone, call the number on the bottom of your screen to schedule your time to come in and receive your very own complimentary financial compass review. 888-970-4685 is the number to call, or you're welcome to scan that QR code, and that will get you connected as well. We'll be back with more on this conversation of to Roth or not to Roth right after this.
After college, I spent 8 years active duty as an Army officer, as a captain in the Army. And I was really driven by this idea of service and serving something bigger than myself. And when I got out of the military, it was an easy transition to financial services as a financial advisor. There was a firm that was looking for military officers who had just gotten out. They had done a study, and the people that served in the military tended to do well in financial services. And once I got into it, I just really fell in love with not only working with clients, but building portfolios, the strategic part. Just like in the military, a military operation, you're here today and later you want to get to this destination. How are you going to get there safely? Planning all the logistics, the danger areas, planning around those. They just related to each other in a way that just made sense for me. And this feeling of serving clients, serving others that's bigger than myself became kind of my calling, just as serving in the military was my calling. Think your retirement savings are all yours? Think again. Your traditional 401k, IRA, or pension comes with a tax bill from the IRS, and it could be bigger than you expect. Want to find out how much? Our quick and easy tax calculator can show you right now. Just scan the QR code or visit BulmanTaxBill.com to see your potential tax hit and how to plan around it.
Welcome back to Your Financial Compass, where we just unveiled the tax bill calculator for your retirement. If you're just tuning in and joining us, we would love for you to take out your smartphone even now and put in your own numbers. You can visit bwgtaxbill.com or scan that QR code. And again, this is completely complimentary, but you're going to be able to get an instant snapshot of the difference that it could mean for you from a tax perspective. And as we said before the break, no doubt once folks see those numbers, I can already hear the jaws hitting the floor, right? They're going to want to reach out to you guys and say, help. How do I help, myself make sure that I can lower my tax liability as much as possible for my retirement? I would love for you to share some real life examples of how you've helped folks navigate through this important decision of whether to Roth or not to Roth.
One of the things comes down to the timeline of it. So using the example of, an RMD, a required minimum distribution, as we discussed earlier, let's just say someone's RMD, by the year 2033, the RMD age goes up to age 75. So say an example of someone that's 65 now, essentially they have a 10-year window to convert. Because when we bring it up with someone like, well, do I convert all at once? Oh my gosh, it'd be such a big tax bill. Obviously we don't, because we're going to hop brackets and pay more than we should. But the point is, we can do it systematically. We don't. In many instances, we might not convert at all, depending how much you have. Even with a 10-year window to convert a certain amount per year, we might not convert at all, and that's okay. There's not like all or nothing kind of rule. So we want to be very mindful of how we're doing it. Tax rates are going to change during that 10-year span. I think there's a good chance of, but there has to be some strategy behind it. And we can, as we run plans and run scenarios, we can show you, the tax bill website's kind of the tip of the iceberg. We can show you in a more in-depth plan how much you really save over your lifetime. And that's where the eyebrows really, oh my gosh, when do we start?
Right, yep. So again, lots to consider. No two situations are alike. There's no one-size-fits-all approach with this. What are some other considerations you want our viewers to be aware of?
A really important consideration to get the full benefit of the Roth conversion. It's important that a person has some money outside of those qualified accounts in their taxable account at the bank that they can use to pay that higher tax bill that they're going to have when they do that conversion. Again, we think it's a huge benefit to pay the taxes now at lower rates than in the future, but it is important to be able to access money outside of that account to pay for that tax bill to allow as much money as possible to grow tax-free for years, if not decades.
Because so just walk me through this. If someone's deciding that maybe they want to do the Roth conversion, but they don't have a big pot of extra cash to pay the tax, right? And they're thinking, well, can't I just take it out of that money? What you're saying is that would just erode the value of the savings, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, if, in this instance, as you said, if we don't have money on the side to pay the tax bill, you can still do a Roth conversion. So you're not out of, you're not out of the realm of possibility for that. The way it would be treated, though, is, let's just say someone's going to convert $50,000. When Shawn's instance, if we have money set aside, we can convert all $50,000 from the IRA into the Roth IRA. So you have $50,000 growing tax-free. Then you pay the taxes that it triggers, you'll pay with out of your own pocket the next year. However, if you don't have that money, as you were asking, Kristen, don't have that money set aside, we can just take the taxes off the top. Meaning, say we've got $50,000 and we want to convert it, maybe we withhold 10, 15 grand off the top, pay the taxes, withhold them, then what's left, the net amount, will go into the Roth thing. So you're not losing out if you don't have money set aside. Ideally, we'd want more growing.
Right.
And if we have the cash, but if we don't, we can still do it. It's just a different nuance in way we have to go about doing it.
And it's good to know that there's different strategies out there. I know no one enjoys paying tax ever, right?
He said he did.
But to your point, you want to pay when the rates are lower. But I think it can be really challenging for folks to think, wait, you want me to save money aside to pay a tax bill, right? But again, once you see those numbers side by side, I think it's a lot more motivating to go ahead and do something about it.
And there's one other thing, we only touched on it briefly earlier, because sometimes people are like, well, it's nice to save in taxes, which is kind of the main reason we convert, but another is the legacy element. Let's just imagine you have kids that you want to leave this money to. It's going to do them a lot more of a service and value to leave them Roth money than it would traditional IRA, traditional 401k money, because if they inherit that money from you and it's still in an IRA, for example, they have a 10-year window where they need to liquidate that money. What if they're in their high-paying job and they don't need the money? It's just going to create more tax problems for them. So kind of a secondary bonus or thing to keep in mind of doing this conversion is it does or can help your loved ones or the beneficiaries of these accounts. If you're leaving them Roth money, they receive it tax-free. Uncle Sam's out of luck there.
Yep. Wow, so much goes into this whole conversation of to Roth or not to Roth. Thank you so much for the different points you brought up and being able to break it down, and I'm excited for more folks to get to connect with you. And again, we encourage you to visit that tax bill calculator by going to bwgtaxbill.com. But at the end of the day, the best way to get the help that you might need is by coming in and sitting down with the team of Bulman Wealth Group, and they would love to be able to help and serve you through the form of their complimentary financial compass review. 888-970-4685 is the number to call. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you next time on Your Financial Compass.